Welcome. This is Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau, and this is a show that will take you a moment to wrap your heads around new thought, new thinking, new ideologies that you've been taught to think and to believe about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. Today, I'm very happy to have my guest, Rob Schwartz. He is also a practitioner in the world of the spiritual. Now, this is interesting when I say spiritual. Don't be turned off by that. What I want you to understand is we are spiritual and material here on the planet, and we always have been. Now, on a soul level, people aren't taught, unfortunately, in the world when they're growing up, going to school, what happens on a soul level. Did you ask to come here? I'm here to let you know, as Rob will later. The answer is yes, you did. Now, I want to discuss this because this is the first time I'm doing a show after the passing of my partner and spouse of 10 years. And I want to explain how that happens. Now, many of you know, not only am I a metaphysical spiritual teacher for over 45 years, but over 45 years as a highly respected, well-known psychic to those that choose. And this is important. I'm known for my level of accuracy. And it's not just a pretend, it can't be, because there are heavy karmic implications if that was the case. And they're not worth it, by the way, for anyone to pretend. But in this instance of my husband's passing, that was January 1st, 2022 of this year. Now, people say or believe the myth that psychics can't read themselves. That's also a myth. And I've disproved that quite some time. We all are in different classes in this, what we call Earth School 101 here, I call. And each class is regimented for that particular person's lessons or where they need to be. Some are in kindergarten, that's okay. Some are in grammar school, some are in high school, college, graduate, and postgraduate. And I would be in the area of post in my work and study and work. But it's extremely important to understand what I'm trying to share today, especially with that personal note, especially regarding my own partner. Now, this is important because I want you to understand this is the ramification, so you'll see that these principles exist. And my guest, Rob, will give more input about that as well as we interchange going on through the show today. That passing was a shock at the moment in time. However, just 1 year before on his birthday, actually 6 months before his birthday in May, what ended up happening was I like to do a process called the solar return. And it's an advanced astrological method of seeing what the year ahead holds for each person based on their birth data, as well as the location that they are in the world at the time they celebrate that birthday. And I am a hard and fast skeptic, always have been. I like proof from the divine universe, and they continue to give it to me this entire lifetime. And so many years ago, I would have clients that would call for their birthday reading for a gift for themselves. They'd bring a friend or not. And at the end, I would take this little resource that I'd been guided to that was exceptional. Now, I only take something after 5 years of research and confirmation that it really is accurate. And this little resource for the solar return is so accurate that I would let my psychic work go ahead for the person's hour-long reading. Then I said, I have a gift. I'd pull their chart out and then read from this specific resource. That was incredible. And the resource that don't know if the name is Your Solar Return by Cynthia Bohannon. And there are many resources out there that are also accurate, but this I found quite exceptional. And again, I remind you, I was guided years ago to the resource. It's now out of print and hard to locate, but extremely accurate. Now, remember, there are spiritual and metaphysical tenets that I'm going to talk about here that all combine to make you who you are this lifetime, all of us. And again, we have free will on the planet as well regarding those choices as well. Now, what had happened was I would do their birthday report, their psychic work, and then I would give this, the book, read exactly what the book said. And the book would say exactly what I just said in the psychic reading. I thought, why am I wasting my energy? Why don't we just use the book? So I thought it was a lot easier for friends or loved ones or myself or family just to do so out of the book and just give them that discourse with other opportunities for them to grow, and if they choose to resonate to the material or not, for a whole year ahead. Well, last year, May 2021, I was doing my partner's solar return. And it said, and I had never seen this in more than 30 years, It said these exact words, and you need to hear this. It said, by one aspect, it's called, but I won't do astro speak right now. If you do not change your need to dominate and control, you will find yourself with an unexpected death before your next birthday. Well, it shocked me because this is my partner. How do you tell someone that close? With a client, I would still be gentle and everything else, but your partner, this is very interesting information. And then I went through the rest of the dialogue for the entire year, and it stated it similarly 2 more times. Well, if I'm given that information from the divine universe because I choose to look and be guided to the information at that time, it's not for me to amuse myself in my own bedroom. It's for the gift of knowledge for the person it was intended. But I knew I had to do it with a spouse, a partner, pretty gingerly. So I thought I'd do it lightly, and it, you know how guys are, it goes over the head, lightly, too light. And I thought, this is very important. I need to show the importance. So 3 weeks later, I decided to read the exact 3 portions exactly as written based on that solar return. And then he took notice. He listened. I also let him know, that was May, a couple of months later, again, oh, you got to watch that. Honey, you don't, that was my nickname for him, honey, you don't want to go that way. Remember, this year, you have a choice. Everybody has that free will choice many times. And certain things are destined, certain things are free will. And so you can't control a person. You can't make them do something. But now I will go back just to a year prior to 2021, prior to that statement. I also teach an unusual method of quantum bioenergy healing that is about 1,000 times more prominent or, how can I say it, efficient for healing disease, mind, body, and soul, but disease especially, of the body, that I've been doing since 1996. And one of the students that had come had actually been a friend of his. He's originally from England. She'd actually come to the course several years ago, and she in her own way was working with her own intuition. And in 2020, we happened to go to her home with her husband to have some fish and chips. She's English, my partner was English. Just enjoy. We hadn't seen each other in quite some time. And so I thought it was quite interesting because she happened to look up, and with her own ability, she said, as we're all eating, you got something over your left forehead and your left side of your head, over your eyebrow, your left side. You might want to look into that. And I didn't say anything. And we went and finished the meal. And in the car, I thought, 3 days later, we and my partner and I are walking into the Walmart. And he had parked, so I'm waiting in the aisle ahead, past the turnstile quite a bit, just waiting for him to come in. All of a sudden, I'm looking ahead, and something tells me to turn around. I turn around, and I look at him coming through the turnstile, and I see above his head a neon green oval that was about an inch thick of light, green, emerald, neon green light, not emerald, but neon. And it was an oval over the left eyebrow onto the left side of his head. And I couldn't stop but stare. And I thought, oh my goodness, it reminded me of what she just said. She saw something dark and mottled and speckled, but that was her class. Mine was seeing it in bright neon, and they wanted me to see. So he walked up and he noticed I was staring because I was shocked. And he said, what are you staring at? I said, I'll tell you when I get to the car. So when we got a few items, got back out, I said, you make an appointment with your doctor now for a brain scan. I said, this is what I saw. This is what she saw 3 days ago. You go now. The divine universe is trying to let you know, but you need to go. And that week he made an appointment with his doctor of over 30 years. He had seen him through lots of beautiful changes and seen how it improved his body and health. It was amazing. But the doctor didn't know what prompted that brain scan. But the year prior and a couple of years prior, I had known something was quite different about him. Brilliant, intelligent guy, a 4th-degree black belt, a sensei, a phenomenal businessman, many, many years of being successful at all this, and how can I say, able to understand my abilities. And I thought to myself, but I knew something was off because his anger issues were becoming more raging, more intense. And so we don't engage, we observe. Okay, we don't have to allow that opportunity, but we watch. And I had said, something's wrong mentally. You need to have a check for some time. Well, he had told me long ago that his father had short-term dementia, and it really hurt him because it was so bad. It was severe. He would be driving with his father, and the father would repeat the same sentence about 6 times in a 2-minute period. Well, in 2014, my partner was driving my car, and he did the same thing. And I said, Heidi, you just repeated that to me, the same thing 7 times. And he said, oh, went into a rage. It's a guy. No, I didn't. I'm perfect. That kind of thing. I thought, okay. And then 2 weeks later, it happened again. He did it and repeated the same sentence 6 to 7 times in under 2 minutes. And I watched again. And this is for the knowledge of the population, for a very important reason, especially now because of the last 2 years, what we've all been going through. And so I said it again in the car. Heidi, did you know? Again, no, I did not. He didn't even know he'd done it or said it. And so I knew from my practice and my study of herbs, iridology, as well as how can I say to eat and what we do, that gotu kola is an herb that is by far about 1,000 times more effective than ginkgo biloba in stimulating brain activity back into action. And he was a brilliant guy. And so I noticed with him taking, it's all safe, it's all natural, it's a food supplement, no problem. I'd seen it work several times before and was guided to do that. And he listened and he decided to take it. But I could tell if he missed one dose, it's supposed to be 3 times a day for the body to consume it. I could tell if he missed. And I said, did you happen to miss a dose today? He said, nope, because he didn't want me to know. But he had missed, and you could definitely tell in his actions, his attitude, his demeanor. And so that would be fine. But remember, now I'm having all these things happen that are kind of unusual and not knowing how to put them together. Well, I come to find out after being guided that I call his doctor after his passage and make an appointment with the doctor. The doctor said, oh, who are you? He knew that I was his partner. And I said, well, doctor, he said, yes, you're calling about the brain scan. I said, yep. He said, there it is. The frontal temporal lobe has a bony growth growing into it for some time. And at the time he had gotten the scan in 2020, the doctor said, it's benign, just watch it. We'll see if it grows. But by then we had COVID and every clinic had been closed. So he thought, being a guy, I feel fine, no problem. But that bony growth had been there for quite some time in the left front temporal lobe. Well, if anyone wants to investigate research, they'll find when there's a bony growth there in the left front temporal lobe, it controls rage and anger. And when there's an issue with it, it means the person dealing with it is not aware of their own mood changes. They are not aware of their rage and anger or aggressive behavior against themselves or others. And I thought, you've got to be kidding. And then I started to be guided to investigate further, asking a few of my clients who are doctors. And the way he passed was instantly. Eyes open, mouth open in a relaxed pose, watching TV, arm behind his head, just relaxed, knee up, leg out, watching his favorite thing, koi, okay, on YouTube. It was great because he had had a great day, but the night before, he had bumped into the wall going to the bathroom and said, well, my judgment's off. I said, you okay? I'm fine. He had the best dream of his life and he never remembered his dreams. He was amazing. And I found his favorite snack, pistachios, vacuum sealed, gave him some of that. I found the remote that he'd lost 6 days before. A man without his remote, how that can be. It's like losing an arm or a leg. But he was fine. And it was the happiest moment. But however, that week just prior, we had come down with the flu, the winter flu, lately called COVID. We had some visitors come by and they had told us they had been vaxxed. Now, we were aware of all the research prior to, and we weren't sure what to do after they told us they'd been with us for 2 hours talking and that they had been vaxxed. We thought we'd be fine with all our preventive healthy fare, but that wasn't the case. So we kind of missed Christmas because we were too sick. We were eating soup and juice, that kind of thing. And so he was basically fine, though. All the vitamins and regimen, we were doing fine. I was worse off than he was. However, we managed through. We didn't really have Christmas dinner. We had soup. And why I'm telling you this is because you can notice and watch it in your own lives. Now, he was only 67 years old. He walked every day. Remember, he had a very physical life as a 4th degree black belt sensei for 30 years prior to this. And yes, he had some underlying issues that had been changed over the years since I'd known him on a healthy fare. The doctor couldn't believe it was the same person, the best blood test and all that stuff, except now for this bony growth. I came to find out it was called frontotemporal dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and his version was behavior variant. And I let the doctor know that I had unfortunately had to witness some of those things over the past several years. Now, this is important for you to note because I then talked to one of my clients who is a neuroscientist after finding a paper. And that paper stated it was a scientific paper where doctors noted that after 20 years of study, their clients who chose, all freedom of choice, to take an mRNA vaccine, it rapidly progressed all dementias. I thought that was interesting. And he was vehemently against a vaccine. That's his choice. However, family members were vehemently opposed to his choice. Okay. And so they wouldn't speak to him for a couple of years, which is sad. But before then, the grandkids, he loved his hands-on with granddad, that kind of thing. So that was sad. They didn't even get to use it with the Zoom. That's okay. Families' choices, things they're working through. But what I noticed was the behaviors would get worse and worse and worse prior to knowing this, prior to his quick and immediate demise. Eyes open, mouth open, relaxed, not any trauma, no distress, nothing. Happy because he had the remote, and we were already overcoming our little issue of having the winter flu. I took that scientific paper, and I happened to show it to a client who's a neuroscientist. She has 2 PhDs, and I'd known her for over 20 years. And she wrote back and she said, well, you know, this is interesting. She said, because I wondered when this would be public. She said, we found in the lab with our mice, or our animals, actually, she said, that this all happened. Their dementias all rapidly progressed. Her field of study was neurodegenerative diseases or brain diseases. She'd studied 20 years ago, and at UCLA, they had found this. That was why she said if he had taken the vax, he would have passed on sooner, she said. So intuitively, he knew not to do so. And he wasn't respected for that choice. Other people did respect, but the family just couldn't bring themselves to do so. And that's their free will choice. Understand? Free will on the planet. Now I'm going to go back just a little bit because that's when I was shown psychically, seen. And I'm going to go back a little bit to about 3 years before that or prior. I studied richly and deeply advanced spiritual astrology, all these knowledge and information so I can pass on to clients, myself. And I happened to be looking at his chart on the area of marriages. And I was reading it to him from a confirmed resource yet again. And the resource said this. The resource said he would marry 2 or have 2 wives in this lifetime. It said the first wife in this lifetime would be underneath his intellectual level and underneath his status. But this was a good thing because on a soul contract level, he had promised to show her that she could have a better quality of life. And they did. Custom 5,000 square foot home, bespoke, that sort of thing. So it was fantastic for them to have that opportunity and to live that life. And they were together some 30-some years, albeit not the way that he chose at the end. And that happens for soul growth, but not a mistake. I kept reading and it said, and the second wife will be psychic. I screamed. He looked at me. It was in shock. How could this happen? How could it definitely say that this was the case, that the first wife, and he met her at the disco. She happened to be a barmaid. He went 4 times a week at a time after his job and work when he was some 20-some years old. He loved it. He loved dance. It was also in his birth chart. But it also went on to say, and with that example, because he had Mars in that house of marriage, he had to learn to constructively utilize his anger in a manner or energy that way, and perhaps should look into martial arts. And what did I say earlier? He was a sensei for 30 years, and he taught 1,600 kids for free because he had his own businesses. So it's a brilliant way he could teach confidence in themselves and to make better choices and quality. And to this day, that dojo is the #1 dojo in England for black belts, taught tournament karate. So I couldn't believe, here all these things, the divine universe has devised a system that we can see these things that the soul has chosen prior to their birth. How could those things be so accurate? but made by the divine God creator for those that are aware or choose to learn it. So now you understand the purpose of this lifetime. This was a plan. And I'll go back one little step. When we met, because I'm busy with my work, I had planned this lifetime, only soulmates, that's it. I have no time for all the other stuff. But what happened was, sure enough, when we met with a radio interview. I interviewed a friend, and he happened to be at his house. What happened was, he said, I don't know, but when I first heard your voice, he said, I just knew I had to have you in my life as a friend or someone close. And then after that, he would call, and he had an appointment for his reading. And he said, oh my God, I got like 17, 20 things out right that I couldn't have known. And so we kept a dialogue of friendship for 18 months, even before we came as together as a couple. Now, I want to get a second or third opinion. So I called actually and contacted a brilliant source of evolutionary astrology, actually the administrator of the school. And she had known her since 96. And I had to wait for my appointment. And she looked at just the birth data. And she told me at that time, before I was even thinking of connecting or actually coming up with this at time, she said, do you understand? You've been together several lives. I said, yes, I know. She said, not just 2 or 3. Do you understand? Several. It shows here, several past lives together as partners. She said, all of them were very good. She said, in fact, it shows the last 3 lives, you came as partners when Earth was at greatest cataclysm. And she said, in that last third life, just before this, our 3 children were killed. And that was the first time the relationship had diminished or deteriorated, because neither one of us could handle the passing of our 3 lovely children. She said, you do understand. She said, those children will be here this lifetime. Now, I have 1 son. He had 2 daughters from his previous marriage. So I thought it was quite interesting, all this coming together. And you see in the charts that it should have been a close relationship with the daughters and the sons. You see it all relate if you look at advanced spiritual astrology, that it all was meant to be all determined by the souls making a beautiful contract prior to their birth. I thought this was interesting because she said, and I could see when she told me that the relationship deteriorated, that he had gone through warrior lives because he was angry perhaps at God. Samurai, warrior, Viking school, that kind of thing, soldier, general. And you could see it because he used his quality in his work and career, owning the businesses and running a large staff and being successful. But I could see that I had taken a different route, and it shows in my work that I chose not to incarnate on the planet for hundreds of years, studying divine universal law. And I promised this lifetime to start to come back and to share that information for those who wanted more greater soul growth for themselves. So we can see how the departure happened, how the divine universe arranged for us to come together, because there are no mistakes in the universe. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences. Why I'm saying it is, Edgar Cayce, the seer of the 20th century, the most documented psychic, confirms he's discussed 10,000 topics, not just health. 10,000 brilliant topics, all confirmed in their libraries to this day at the ARE Foundation in Virginia Beach. He states, there is no death, doorway into the physical, or birth into the physical, birth into the spiritual, save for the transition. So what we find is we have one soul, as I know, and it was confirmed many years for me in my studies, that lives forever. And we get in these cute bodies, nationalities, each gender, for greater soul growth to align back to God Creator in our own way, in our own time. And this is this discussion in depth today, the topic of your soul's plan. And Rob, I thank you very much for being with us. Rob is an author, and he'll tell you a little bit more how you came about this. Please.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. So I'm the author of 3 books, Your Soul's Plan, Your Soul's Gift, and Your Soul's Love. The premise of all 3 is that we ourselves plan our lives, including our biggest challenges, before we're born. And in the books, I share true stories of people's pre-birth planning and attempt to explain why people plan particular challenges. So between the 3 books, it covers pretty much every major kind of challenge we face here in the Earth School. I'm also a hypnotist. I specialize in something called a between lives soul regression, which is a form of hypnosis in which you can talk to loving, highly evolved non-physical beings who know everything about you. And you can ask literally any question. And if it's for your highest good to know the answer, they will answer the question. And we do those kinds of sessions both privately and in my online workshops. So the website is yoursoulsplan.com for those who would like to learn more. So what happened for me is that back in 2003, when I was 40 years old, I was in the corporate world. I'd been in the corporate world for a number of years, basically doing marketing communications. And I did not like this at all. It was very unfulfilling. And even more so, I had this nagging sense that I had come to Earth to do something in particular that I wasn't doing. And I wanted to figure out what that was and then start doing it, but I didn't know how to figure out what it was. And so I tried very conventional routes. I went for career counseling. I took the Myers-Briggs inventory, and none of that really helped. I asked all my friends and family, what do you think I should do with my life? Nobody had any helpful suggestions. And so almost out of desperation, I did something I had never done before and wasn't even sure that I believed in. And I say that with all due respect to you, given that you are a medium. And that is I had a session with a medium.
Psychic, that's different from the medium.
Oh, okay.
No, it's quite different.
Okay. Well, I had a session with somebody who knew a lot about me. And the session started with her saying, your spirit guides are here. I said, what is a spirit guide? I mean, I'd never even heard the term before. So she explained that. And then she said, your guides would like to speak directly with you. And she started to channel them. And the first thing they said right out of the box was, you planned your life, including your biggest challenges, before you were born. And I'll tell you, I just shook my head and I said, well, why in the world would I have done that? And they said, you did this for purposes of spiritual growth. Now, I probably would have dismissed all of this as some kind of delusion on my part, except that they then launched into this very specific, lengthy monologue in which they explained to me why I had chosen all of my challenges. And what was really impressive about this is that they knew what all of my challenges had been without me telling them anything, nor had I told the medium anything, the psychic, anything prior to the session. Okay. So as you can imagine, if you're talking to beings who know everything about you without you telling them anything, it gives them a lot of credibility. So I came out of that session with my mind blown wide open. And I thought about this and I thought about it. And the effect that it had on me was that it created quite a deep healing because it allowed me for the first time to see deeper meaning in my challenges. And I thought, well, if this kind of awareness can create a profound healing for me, surely it can do so for other people. And that was when I first started to think about writing a book on the subject. Then within a very short time of that session, I was introduced to a woman who has the ability to go into trance and channel her soul, her higher self. So I spent about 15 hours talking with her higher self about pre-birth planning. I was told in great detail how it works and why people plan challenges. And that information really served as the foundation for all 3 books I went on to write. And then within a very short time of that experience, something else very important happened. I had what is sometimes called a spiritually transformative experience in which I was doing nothing more than walking down the sidewalk in the middle of the afternoon. And I had this experience in which every time I looked at another person, this feeling of pure, overwhelming, unconditional love washed over me. And when I say unconditional love, those are the words that are closest in the English language, but there are no words that even begin to describe this. All I can tell you, it was a divine love, not a human love, and it was a transcendent experience. And you could say that I was caused to know in this experience, I was caused to know that we as souls are made literally from the energy of unconditional love. Now, what I didn't understand at the time was why this was happening. That became clear a couple of years later. By that time, I had looked at a number of people's pre-birth plans for my first book. And what I found is that every plan, no matter what kind of challenges were being designed, was based on complete unconditional love for every person involved. And then I realized, yes, that experience a couple of years ago, that was given to me so that when I found this in my research, I would know that it was true. That in a nutshell is how I came to be on the path that I'm on now.
Excellent, excellent. So I like the fact that it happened not earlier in life, but later when you thought you had everything together. But I
Yeah.
also noticed that you were, not fulfilled. And out of that looking or searching or reaching, it brought you to this moment and to this point of transformation. And that loving feeling is something that the planet is in need of at this time and forward. And unconditional love means, well, we know pets teach us, cats, dogs teach us unconditional love because you're not putting them out, so to speak, if they don't do something right. But we'll get rid of a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner pretty easily and without thinking. You give unconditional love normally to your children for the most sake, and that kind of thing. So it is, or we know what it is. We have to develop that consciousness or that awareness to be able to display it. And here you were just walking down the street, Rob. It just in that moment in time. Now, that collection of the spirit guides is actually what I see. I don't do a reading without them. I see and hear the person's guide / guardian angel, so to speak, the more normal word that they hear. But it is a guide. You cannot be born on the earth after you've chosen that life plan or soul plan. Literally in this lifetime, you're granted permission by your counsel, so to speak, to do that plan. You made all those choices on a spiritual level on the astral plane to learn. You got great grades, and you're granted permission to come and incarnate yet again to Earth School 101, as we just mentioned. But what ends up happening is you're never allowed to do more than you could handle. And you said it correctly, Rob. If things were easy, we had just an easy life sitting on the beach only, we'd never grow.
Mm-hmm.
In adversity, or through adversity, we learn to become stronger, strengthen ourselves, be more resilient, be more compassionate, be more caring. All those things have to be if we don't have that opportunity. But it is through adversity we also appreciate the good things. We really appreciate them much more intently. And so when I saw, like you did, more specific things happen, the detail, it was so great with the evolutionary astrology. It was just amazing that she could pinpoint. She said, and she's not psychic, okay? That was the key. She was just doing her work that's been designed in that manner, utilized properly. And she said, it shows on this day that his whole life is getting ready to change. I won't say the date. It was the date of my airline ticket to move up. I was shocked. I didn't tell her until this year. That was 10 years ago, because I was so shocked that it showed in his birth that his whole life was changing for the better. And so it was interesting to see how we chose that dynamic. And then again, of course, we research what the soul promised. And remember free will. He had free will to make that choice. Even Edgar Cayce was given a choice. If he continued to do 20, 30 readings a day, his death date would be coming on quickly. If he chose to just do 2 a day, as his guides and source let him know, he would be able to handle, I think it was 2 to 4 more years later. But he wanted to give, and there were, the war was on, World War II at the time, and he would just go through 10, 20 more a day. And that takes life force. People don't understand the work of a psychic or a medium takes life force from you. And so it diminished his ability to continue. So many times, even I let clients know the day or the path they're choosing to go home or pass is chosen. The way is chosen. We're not allowed to say, because some people would try to cheat it a little bit. But what happens is we do hope that they learn whatever lessons they were to learn till the last draw of breath. And so I will tell you, and since last September, I have now lost 22 people because of the conditions of the world. Now, I have a lot of clients, people, but 22, either from adverse reactions or from the action itself of choice or from being around it. And when I found exactly what the neuroscientist or client had said and the research paper said, it's because whatever is being offered to people is causing a spike, literally, in toxicity that spreads from someone's breath or breathing and tears and sweat, those exosomes, so to speak, that create a person in realm with them to rapidly progress the dementias. So now you watch and you see this happening around the world. And so unfortunately, that's another show to talk about that topic. But we still want to instill why the soul would choose. Why would we choose to come at this intense time? But we came packed with need for soul growth, as you mentioned, and to leave the world better than when we came. That's the purpose. So my hope is that your books, your work, with your regressions as well, that they get along their path in life, the work I do, to keep them. The whole point is we are really one. That's the key. We're all connected. And when one of us does well, it inspires the other to do so. I always say everybody we see at Walmart has to make it. It's a big job if you see the YouTube videos. The point is those are your brothers and sisters that you promise to inspire. All of them, the ones that are against or for, no need to divide and conquer. All out of that bond of unconditional love. Let them have their free will. Everybody does. And it's interesting to see on the planet. Yes, we've seen many, many cases of the wrong use of will, unfortunately, or no need for soul growth. But at this point of evolution, humankind is evolving at a very rapid rate that it has not prior to. Mother Earth is evolving, and humankind for those that resonate. And so we want everybody to be on their divine right path. What I saw was with my own partner, I had also seen his karmic report from offered from the area as well, and his past life report. And it stated 4 big things that he was to work on this lifetime that the soul's plan, Rob, was for. One, it had said he had been in several cycles of past lives. Out of his mouth, nothing came out but cruel, harsh, poisonous words. It said, so in this lifetime, from the very inception, he had nothing that must come out of his life. Nothing that must come out of his mouth, but love, appreciation, and joy. And he had a huge booming voice, wonderful voice, but he would go into these rages, and that was not what was coming out. So I termed it Laj. And I would say, honey, Laj, love, appreciation, and joy. But remember, you can't force someone, even your partner, to do something they're not willing to do. Now, it was noted that he had this issue. It also had another issue. It stated that in this lifetime, he must stop making himself the victim. And I thought, you got to be kidding. And it gave a strong example. It said, and bear with me here, it said, if you killed all the members of your family because you got into an argument, and then you called the police and stood outside, you tell the police it was the family's fault that you killed them. It said, you must not make yourself the victim this lifetime. And he unfortunately didn't do that as well. So he couldn't bring with his own shame of his actions. And the neuroscientist explained to me, she said, do you understand with the bony growth in the frontal temporal lobe, they lose the proper function of their executive centers. They no longer function properly. They don't know how to control it. They don't know what's happening to them. And so they don't even know they've done it or said it. And so that was interesting because the parties around them would, and I was the party around him. So she was stating that it's also confirmed that's one of the most misdiagnosed early onset dementias. It starts from the age of 40 to 64, and it is different from the symptoms of someone in the elderly. So I watched and through the years as researching, and you saw he showed all those, but you can't tell. Brilliant, intelligent guy, but all of a sudden, and then remember, he wouldn't even know what he did or said. So she said, you can imagine how frightened he must have been on the interior, not knowing how to control it or what to do or what was going to come next. So you saw all those things. Unfortunately, his family doesn't even believe in the issue, but it's a genetic predisposition that they have. And that's the sad part. And not only that, remember I told you we had the winter flu at that time, just for a few days. It happened just before Christmas, and he was gone by New Year's Day. That's very short. And literally, they were going to do an autopsy. They said full, but then they decided not to. They said, no, we tested him for the flu at the time. I won't say the name. And so we just gave him a scan, and he had a partial, the coroner told me 3 times, he said, we found with that scan, he had partial pneumonia in one lower lobe of one lung. He's a big guy, 6'5", fit, walked all the time. So I thought to myself, what? He said, I said, you're not going to get the underlying cause? He said, no, we're not going to do that. But we're going to say it was this prominent, popular flu. And I said, but wait a minute, that was not, no, we're going to say, he said it 3 times. And unfortunately, he thought that his value was in his check, instead of what happens to the population at the time. So any person in the health field, whether they're medical, coroners, doctors, nurses, you have a duty to the public. You have a duty to be honest, not just for your paycheck. I want them all, if they do, God forbid, if whatever the powers that be, let them know that they can't have their position. They need to go somewhere else altogether and offer us the reality. And many of them have in this case. And again, it should not be tearing apart families. It should not be tearing apart loved ones and friends. It should be a free will choice, as it always should be. But on that note, I want people to understand that the prevalence of rapidly progressing dementias happens from this particular thing that's been given to the population. So this is a problem or given choice that they should take or not. So I want them to develop more than just a superficial look. When I research relentlessly, deeply. I want everything in front to see it. And then I ask for the guidance to do so. I don't just go on the internet and just pick up what's right there. I ask for divine guidance. Then I ask for confirmation for the same. Before I'll make it any extrapolation about what it should be, I want the guides to confirm it for me. And they do. So I want people to understand if these strange behaviors are happening, there is no cure for frontotemporal dementia, none. It has a 6 to 8 year length normally from the onset, which was 2014, till it happened 1/1/2022. And those numbers, master numbers as well. So no mistake that I didn't note them. The odd thing was he would tell me after I taught him years ago, he didn't believe in anything spiritual, wasn't focused that way. Business, phenomenal. His gift was sales and marketing. He was a whiz. So what would happen is, the interesting thing was I told him, you know, the divine is always trying to speak to us in some way. I said, just watch, the numbers will come like 3 digits at a time. And he said, no way. And I had just gotten together with him here. And sure enough, what had happened was I said, yes, watch. We were driving. He was driving on the freeway. And a license plate came with 222. I said, see, they are talking straight to you. Because I just said this, they were talking. No. And so another one came, 555, got in front of him. Another one came, 777. A 5 license that had the similar 3 patterns altogether came in front of his car. He said, there's no way that's happening. They're not talking to me. And I said, yes, they are. They really are. But you're not being able, the conscious mind isn't able to receive or hear the information, but they are. They're letting you know because I just told you about this. The next car came, and on the plate it said his name. And I won't say the name here. And I said, see, from that day forward, from the first time I was with him 10 years ago, every single day we would drive, we would see triple digits all the time. And he would know that, again, they're on in all of them. It would just happen 10, 15 times a day if we were out that long. And so that is always the divine is trying to find a way, your spirit guide, so to speak, trying to connect. The higher archangels are trying to do their work to help us to progress and evolve at this time on a spiritual manner. As I said earlier, we're not just material people with a mind. We are spiritual material people here on the planet. And that's extremely important for people to connect to. It has nothing to do with man's 35,000 religions. Man invented those, God did not. It's your own personal connection, your own personal way to the divine universe, God creator, so to speak. And so everybody finds their way. And through many lifetimes, as you saw, through your experiences in this lifetime that they showed your soul had made this beautiful plan, you came with this beautiful compilation. There are a couple of other things my partner had to work on. It said he was great with women friends, fantastic friendships, but once he crosses that barrier to make it a personal relationship, he had many issues he was supposed to grow to learn. That be it daughters, that be it wives. On a personal level, it's something he didn't have to his expertise. And this was, like you said, his challenge for him to grow in this lifetime. You know, it was an amazing when I saw all those things. And remember, we have free will. People do not realize, Rob, with your plan, though, your book or any other choice that they would choose to do this through your hypnosis, they don't realize that if they choose not to, and they have free will, once they get here, if they choose not to address those issues that their soul planned, they will come back and ask permission. No one will force them from the divine universe to complete that promise. But it will be 10 times harder in the next existence. That's the sad part. So I knew he had his free will choice to be himself. I understand that. I like that he chose the first partner and then the second is a psychic. That just to this day blows my mind. because he wasn't into anything spiritual or anything focused in that manner. And so here it is, that destined choice actually happened. And I had to come a far way to see him. It wasn't like I was moving in the same, town. So it's an important step in this lifetime for people to understand there are beautiful plans the soul makes, but literally all of them, even some of the lessons are very hard, very difficult, but they were only allowed from a soul that has earned or learned the perspective on the spiritual level. Once they incarnate, they only retain 1% of that memory, because this is school. And I always say in schools here, what we do is we teach the lesson to the student, and then we have midterm or final. But in Earth School, you are tested every single day. How you choose to react, how you choose to grow, how you choose to get through the specific circumstances. And people have to understand, if it was a piece of cake easy, there'd be no growth. It's like the pearl, that little grain of sand irritating the inner lining of the oyster. It grows a big, beautiful pearl, but only because it's irritated and it keeps secreting that issue that makes that gorgeous pearl that we admire. But we admire it because it took so much work. So if we only had pretty easy lessons, we would never tend to grow in the manner and the way that we promised. And that was the key. People just don't understand. So when I hear somebody, a child or a teenager say, well, I didn't choose to be born. Yes, you certainly did. And you even choose your parents 2 to 3 years before you're born. It's not a one-night thing. It's a beautiful process. You get to pick the parents. You get to see each parent from the beginning of that parent's life to the very end of that parent's life, how they're going to be, whether you're going to stay together, be apart, whether they divorce, separate, whether you're going to be adopted. All, as you stated, a beautiful soul plan that they choose. Nobody's forcing them. And my hope is they honor their soul's plan. They have to trust, Rob, that they made a good plan for themselves. And most people don't even know they have a plan. So your job, my job, is to help them, to inspire them to recognize they certainly do have a plan. And I hope that they choose to adhere to it. But you can't, like I said, that unconditional love means truly, I have to respect my partner's choices. He was given that information. And one more note on that. Not only was I given that direct information in the year prior to his passing, and actually 6 months prior to his passing, when it ended up happening literally in that period of time was, oddly enough, I'll just suggest or say, I had told 2 friends 3 years ago that knew both of us that I saw psychically that he would be passing in 3 years. One friend said, you know you're really psychic, very psychic, you need to get life insurance. And something inside me revolted to that. I knew it was the wrong way. It's very mercenary. It should be used so the person can choose to put their life on the best track for themselves. Now, I got that call after I had noted, I had let those 2 people know separately that he had passed. They called within 1 hour of one another. And they said, do you remember when you told him 3 years ago he was going to pass? That was confirmation from the divine universe to me that 3 years ago they told me he would be passing in 3 years period of time on the pathway he was currently headed. And that's what we want to respect. So whatever his free will choices are, or anyone's, must be respected for their greater soul growth. Can I ask you to say again how people can learn about your method so they know?
The website is yoursoulsplan.com. If you click on sessions in the main menu, you'll come to a page that explains in great detail what the between lives soul regression is. And there's actually a video there. It's about an hour long of an actual between lives regression. I would encourage people to watch that. Just to give you an overview, it takes about 2 hours on average. We start with some preliminary steps to help you relax physically and mentally. Then I guide you into a past life. It's almost always a past life that had a big impact on the plan for the current lifetime. You experience several different scenes in the past life, the last of which is the death scene. The portion of your consciousness that is having the experience leaves the body in the death scene and crosses over to the other side, which I realize might sound a little bit ominous, but there's actually nothing to it. It's very easy and gentle. When you get back to the other side, most likely you'll be greeted by a spirit guide, although it could be an angel, a master, or a loved one. You talk briefly with whoever greets you about why you were shown that past life and what's important to know about it. And then you ask your guide or whoever you're talking to take you to your council of elders. These, again, are the very highly evolved, loving, and wise beings who oversee your personal evolution. They know literally everything about you. The most common questions people ask are, what did I plan? Why did I make those plans? How am I doing in terms of fulfilling my plan? And how can I better fulfill my plan? So by the time that process is over, regardless of whether you do it as a private session or in one of my online workshops, you should have a very good idea of the answers to all of those questions. It really is potentially a life-changing experience. And in addition to getting information that changes your life, a lot of people talk about the fact that the council is completely unconditionally loving and completely non-judgmental. And they'll say things like, I could tell that the council knew about all the bad things I've done in my life, but they loved me unconditionally anyway. And, you know, that kind of unconditional love is what our home on the other side is like. But for most people, this is their first experience of truly unconditional love since coming into body. So it's really a homecoming in a sense.
That's the excellent part. I remember, unfortunately, going through some research in another angle, and I was researching someone we all know, Bill Gates, actually. And it was an old video I'd seen a couple of years ago when all this came out. And the journalist asked Mr. Gates, he said, Mr. Gates, what do you think of the human soul? And he said, well, I haven't seen any proof that there is such a thing. So you understand they don't know better. So A, not anger toward them. We need to ask for more awareness to be sent their direction, more light, more awareness, more understanding, so they can realign, because obviously there could be a misalignment. And many of us, nobody here is perfect. So we have to keep working on ourselves. In fact, in this work, I have to study all of me all these years, all this time, to make sure that the information is confirmable for all the clients. I've done over 50,000 readings in my career. I stopped counting in 2003. And so I love what the guides give. It's not my opinion. It's not a theory or a belief. I have to tell and show what that person is literally needing to hear from their being in charge, not me. And so it's kind of an interesting thing to see the similar work in different manners is that same way. And so it's important that the person choose if they are ready or ready to know or to feel. We have several avenues between Rob and myself for you. Please state the title of the books again, please.
Your Soul's Plan, Your Soul's Gift, and Your Soul's Love. I sell them in the store on my website. You can get them through Amazon, and pretty much any bookstore or library should be able to order them.
Yes. And that's important so they can get a grasp if they want to read more detail. And I'm sure you have examples for them to see as well in there. Mm-hmm. But it's important to understand we're not just here taking a breath, waking up, going to sleep. There's work to do. Remember what I said, to clean up your own garbage, inspire the rest of the world to do the same, and then leave the world better than when you came. And God and the universe loves us so much. The divine universe loves us. We get this choice to come again and again. That's what born again really means. Reincarnation was taken out of the Bible in 549 AD by the council at that time because they thought it would give people a get out of jail free card, so to speak. They couldn't control them so well if they knew that they could return. But in my work, you can see, I see, unfortunately, even with the use of psychic work as well as the advanced evolutionary astrology, and my work, I note or see that they have missed a whole life of doing what they promised. And yet they're here again, granted that opportunity. Remember, one soul that lives forever in these beautiful, brilliant experiences. And that's just Earth School. There's much more ahead. So on that note, I want to thank you very, very much for coming as a guest into today to share with us what you're doing, what I do. And I'd like to, at this moment, help you, give you this gift of my mini reading on the air. Can't do a full reading, but I want people to see the difference between a storefront gypsy that will take and someone that is real in the process. And so if you will, I'm going to ask you to do it simplified. My real reading is 1 hour long. Of course, we can't do it on the air. But just open with a specific question, not a general vague question. I'll help you phrase it if you need. You will be told your guide, literally, who we connect to. You'll be told the answer and all about it. And just for confirmation, because I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, all the clairs, in fact, I just use tarot. There's a hermetic cross with it on the side here. Let me show it a little better here. The cross should be apparent. Just for a minute it was. You can see it back here. but I use tarot, astrology, numerology, palmistry, graphology, only as a third point of reference in the highest ways as it was intended to confirm what I'm being shown and told. And then the person has free will always to apply that information or not. And so, Rob, your particular question today for me would be?
Well, let me ask you, can I ask a question for somebody else about somebody else?
No, yes, you're welcome to if you'd like.
I'd like to because, and I'm sure 100% certain my wife would be okay with this.
All right.
2 days ago, she had a very interesting and actually a unique experience for her. She was just doing email in the middle of the afternoon. And then for about 15 minutes, there was some kind of disturbance in her visual field, which persisted regardless of whether or not her eyes were open or closed. And there was a lot of light and geometric shapes of different kinds. She said that it was quite beautiful, but it was also unsettling because this had never happened before, and neither one of us has any idea what it is. So I'd like to ask, what was that?
Okay, that's not specific enough. So I want to focus on what you think or she thought was actually the experience. What was the first word out of your mouth? Number one or two or three, if you have three choices, but what's the number one choice you thought or the wife thought it was? And we'll confirm and tell you more about it.
Okay. My wife is a channel, and channel is a collective, a group consciousness that we call the beings of light. Mm-hmm. And someone had asked her quite recently, what do they look like to you? Okay. So my thought was, they're showing you what they look like.
Let's ask if that's okay, if that's what she thinks.
Well, she thinks it could be that, but she is also concerned that perhaps it's some physical issue. And that's really what we'd like to know.
Okay, so ask one or the other. You want to know what she saw in her eye experience that moment with her eyes. Was that the fractal images of the true being she works with? Or was it an issue she must be addressed for her eyesight? Which one do you want to ask? That's two different questions.
Is there a physical issue there?
Okay, I want you not to ask me. With love and respect, you're thinking of her face and name in your heart. You want to ask it directly to your guide, God, and the divine universe, non-verbally, as I shuffle to confirm what they're showing and telling me. You want to know, is that issue or that incident indicative of an eye issue that needs to be addressed? Okay? Mm-hmm. Think it to God, your guide. Think it to them. Is it actually an eye issue that must or needs to be addressed? And please say stop shuffling whenever you like and stop, Rob.
Stop.
And people don't understand, behind the tarot, an archangel speaks behind each one when used properly the way it was intended. Each card can be 24,000 different meanings, not just the name on the bottom of the card. And it is attuned to the reader, not to the person that, and to the person, yes, but to the divine universe first and foremost. And that's how it always should be utilized, not just reading the words at the bottom. But on the pathway you're headed, my goodness, the answer is yes. And I want to show you so people can see. It shows me there's something at the back of the eye that may be a little or slightly or about to detach. And I want to be aware of that. They're showing me that. They actually put me in the person's body. I'll see it as they would, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And it shows me there's a nerve or something that is just on the eye. And it could be the left eyeball at the back, a little issue that's happening there that needs to be looked at. And also, it shows me the anomaly of the eyes. It looks like this. She may have to have some sort of, they're going to suggest a surgical procedure. And she's asked several guides to help her on this. I want to show you the outcome. This is the best card in the deck. There's only two. I want you to look very carefully. I'll hold it back here so it can be seen. It's the sun. And if you notice right there, doesn't it look like a retina there? Mm-hmm. The iris of the eye? This is her skippy happy hoppy about the procedure. Now I want you to show you what they're showing me again. If you can see here, whoops, here we go again. There's another little iris in the center, and those are swords or surgical tools that are going into the eye itself. It also shows me here asking for help. They show me these unusual anomalies, and it looks like it's a nerve issue and that something is happening. So it shows me she's thrilled about the outcome, but the answer is yes, it is a visual issue that it looks like. I'm going to show you here. This is the strong sword is representing her. She asked for divine help to understand this issue as I do. And it shows several helping her to allow or note this. Several indicators are showing me this right now is an eyeball here and the nerve ending detached. But they show me here first. I can see it actually as if I was in her body and feel it actually sometimes. And there also could be an attachment for a little illness or nausea a little tiny bit as something is changing. And they said it has to do with the upper cervicals as well. She needs to make sure either chiropractor or making sure that's in gear so it will not hinge or impinge any of those nerves as they're working out the issue here. Okay. And this is not a mistake. And depending on the eye, it is left eye is receiving, right eye is what we're doing. Where if it's one eye that's having the anomaly, it would, or both, it means we're supposed to take a richer or deeper perspective in how we view or see life when we have vision issues. It's not that we have presbyopic myopia at a certain age. What happens is it means we need to see outside of the perimeter or the box that we caused our thinking or our thought to do. But it means we must improve our vision of how we view things in life. So there's always a mental function behind it. When we're misaligned, God says, well, how can I get them to change that mental misalignment? Oh, I know. I'll put it in their body. Maybe now they'll pay attention to it. So it's a brilliant process for all of us to grow. And so that's how it's done. But as Casey says, every issue in health can go back to 100% healing. It just has, we have to work on it. He was the one that coined the word holistic, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So it's a brilliant process, and it shows me she's getting it taken care of, but it does, they said, again, I heard it needs to be looked after. Okay. And it does show me there could be some course or change. And I'm going to say this, okay, I'm just going to say that there, I'll tell you more as we're getting close to the end of the show at this point. We'll take it off there a little bit. But I want to thank you for the opportunity. If people want to know more about me and what I do, you can visit my website at antonialau.org. ANTONIALAU.org for more information about what I do or to get in contact with me as well for everything from remote or healings as well as psychic readings in depth about your past lives as well as what your purposes are, as Rob does as well. And so it's really an important step. You have free will choice and get confirmation from several choices from today's show. So I want to wish the audience well. I want to wish them all the best. And I want to thank you, Rob, for coming on today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
All the best. Thank you.